So again, I'm Scott from the Milton Chamber, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. But I also want to thank you for your tenacity and patience as we all try and get through this crisis. Um, Once we get Adam Van Koeverden, our Milton MP, on the line, then we can have some comments from Adam. Um, but before we get started, I really did want to offer some thanks. So I wanted to especially thank Grant Thornton for suggesting and hosting today's webinar. You know, it's as I say, it's interesting times, and every day we have new announcements and new opportunities for businesses, and that also creates a measure of confusion. So today is hopefully about fixing some of that confusion. We don't have our MPP Parm Gill on today's webinar. We may be doing future webinars, but I wanted to thank the provincial government for everything that they're doing and for their leadership. And I don't know if Adam is on to hear this, but I want to thank Adam, and I also want to thank the federal government for everything that you're doing to help Canadians and to help businesses try and survive this. A few months ago, nobody imagined the world would shut down, but we are shut, and we're all trying to do what we can. So I think what we'll do at this point is turn it over to Grant Thornton. The agenda today is basically to have a presentation from Grant Thornton, and then we have had some questions pre-submitted. We'll get through those, and we'll also open up the floor for live questions as well. So if we can, I will turn it over. We have Mickey and Mike and Michael joining us from Grant Thornton, and we certainly appreciate your helping us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge. So with that, over to Grant Thornton, please.
Thanks, Scott. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mike. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just want to check that was working there. And it looks like, I don't know if anyone can see the presentation that's now posted. I just got access to it as well. I don't know if, Scott, can you confirm that you can see the presentation now?
I can see it, yes.
Okay, perfect. So we have the visual now to go with. Thanks everyone for your patience. Of course, we're in this new world now where the new normal is working from home and dealing with IT issues, and things just don't work as well when you're plugged into the office. So thanks everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the Milton Chamber for hosting us and providing us this forum to speak to everyone. At Grant Thornton, we want to make sure that our community is thriving. That's one of our purposes. So whether you're existing clients of ours or not, we want everyone to succeed as best as possible. We want you to get through this together. We want to get through this together. The better we get through this, the better we are as an overall community. So beyond that, I would like to start with the disclaimer. This is our disclaimer, just that everything we say today can't be used against us. Legal has its way of having its foot in everything. Moving on to the next, that's our purpose that I just mentioned. And these are who are presenting today. Unfortunately, because we don't have the video option, we can't see each other right now, but I'm Mike Healy. I'm a domestic tax manager, senior domestic tax manager here at Grant Thornton. We have on the line Mike as well, Mike McLaughlin, who's a senior analyst within our domestic tax group as well, and Mickey Denis, who's our senior manager and our regional cloud accounting service leader. So she'll be providing some color throughout the presentation as well, and to be able to help with the Q&A section after. So our agenda today is to go over some of the new federal support measures. Mike McLaughlin will then be talking about some of the provincial support measures. A few of them we've listed that are probably more relevant than others. And then we're going to hopefully leave some time for some significant Q&A after, because I know there's a lot of questions on everyone's mind. So hopefully some of the information we're providing today will answer some of those questions. We still personally have some questions on a lot of this material. We'll let you know where we don't have answers to, but we'll do our best to answer any questions you do have at the end. So the federal government a few weeks ago came out with this 3-point plan that they've called it. And the first point that they've talked about was helping protect jobs. And the way they've done that is they've come out with this Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. And what that does is it provides the opportunity for employers to keep employees on staff in order to, once the economy kind of flips around, it allows them to be in a better position to take that on now that while they currently have staff on payroll. The second point was of the 3-point plan was to help those that lose their jobs. So that's the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which we'll call the CERB throughout the presentation today. And that was to provide, it's supposed to mirror EI, but it's really available to anyone. And it also includes those who were not previously entitled to EI benefits as well. So we'll go through that. And then the helping business piece of as part of the 3-point plan was the guaranteed loans. And Mike McLaughlin will talk about a little bit about that. So under the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the CEWS, the purpose was to enable employers to retain and rehire employees and for employees to remain employed. And in doing that, the government was offering a 75% wage subsidy to all employees for all businesses, MPOs, and charities. In order to meet this, and this is all off the press too, so this all came out yesterday. There was some guidance provided last Friday and then Monday, but we got a little bit more yesterday from Bill Morneau on this. We have to caution though that there is still some draft legislation to be written up in the next few weeks, so we will get even more details. But just from what we understand and what's been posted on the Government Canada's website, the criteria in order to apply for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy of 75% is there must be a business that exists. So that has to be, and business in this case includes anyone that's self-employed, partnerships or corporations. And we do want to mention that at this point, there is no restrictions on the corporation. So as far as we understand, this includes private and public corporations, as well as non-resident corporations that have employees in Canada as well. So we'll wait to see when the legislation comes out if there's any restrictions put on that. But as of right now, it seems to be open to all employees throughout various types of corporations. And it also applies to MPOs and charities. In order to apply for it, the business has to show at least a minimum 30% decline in revenues caused by COVID-19. So in order to do that, the guidelines they've explained was if you're applying for the month of March of 2020, you need to be able to look at your March 2019 revenue and compare it year over year. And if you are down 30%, then you should be able to qualify. And you're doing that for each month thereafter too, for April and May. The important thing to note here is it's a monthly application. So because you apply in March doesn't necessarily mean you get the subsidy for April and May. You need to reapply each month for each of those months in order to get it. MPOs and charities are also expected to show some kind of similar decrease in revenues. Obviously, their model is a little bit different, and Bill Morneau said there'll be more guidance on what similar means. So we'll wait for that to come out as well. And businesses are required at the time of application to attest, not mandatory that they do this, but they are to attest that they will do everything possible to top up the employee's salary over and above the 75% being received as a subsidy. In terms of the amount, so at 75%, there are restrictions and it is capped. So up to 58,700 of an employee to a maximum of 847 a week. And where that number comes from is if you take 58,700, divide that by 52 weeks, you get something like $11,000 or $1,100. Take 75% on that, you get to 847. So that's the subsidized amount that's capped per week per employee. The amount is retroactive to March 15th. So if you had employees on payroll back to March 15th, you can apply up to that date, up before that date, and up to June 6th of 2020. So a total of 12 weeks. Bill Morneau did say that it is open to possible extension. So if needed, they will extend it. But as of right now, it's just a 12-week program. In terms of how to apply for it, there's not a ton of information available at this point. They're still working on the portal for it to be released. It's supposed to be released within 3 to 6 weeks. And there will be a portal on CRA's website in order to apply. They did talk about sending direct deposit payments within 10 days of application. So if you're not set up for direct deposit, it's presumed that they'll send you a check. But I'm assuming in the state of affairs right now, you probably don't want to rely on a check coming to you. So if you can, get direct deposit set up immediately. So what we look at is when we get this legislation, we like to put things into numbers just because it seems to make more sense when we do. So here's an example of an employee, of an employer that has 10 employees. Out of the 5, there's 5 employees that out of those 10 that earn $4,000 a month, and there's another 5 employees that earn $7,000 a month. And we want to calculate what that subsidy will look like for that sort of employer. So to answer that question, you look at the two different blocks of employees, ones that have no restrictions on their subsidy. So the 5 employees earning 4,000 a month earn 48,000 per year. That 48,000 is lower than the maximum limit of 58.7. So their full salaries would qualify for the 75% subsidy. And running through those numbers, the government would subsidize 15,000 on those 5 employees, and the employer cost is 5,000. So that's truly as your 75-25 split. For the other 5 employees at 7,000 a month, that equates to an $84,000 annual salary, and which is over the 58.7. So the excess amount would not be subsidized, and they're capped at the 847 a week. So in that case, they're subsidized 16,940, and the employer's cost is 18,000. So in aggregate, in this situation, the employer's total payroll cost of 55,000, or what would otherwise be their payroll cost of 55,000, is subsidized by the government by 31,000, which is in the range of 55 to 60%, I believe, in this scenario. And the employer pays 23,000. It's important to note there are additional costs that the employer does have to incur here. That there's no subsidized amounts for EI and CPP, as well as EHT and WSIB. But Mike will talk about the deferrals that are available for EHT and WSIB in Ontario. So this is because this information is so new, and we got the information yesterday around 2:30, and we updated these slides just for that purpose. There's still some questions that are outstanding that we're just not overly sure about at this point. One is, do wages and salaries count for shareholders and related parties? As of right now, the way it's been communicated to us, it is, but we're waiting to see till that draft legislation comes out whether there are any restrictions on that sort of salary. In terms of documentation, we understand that when they apply for this subsidy, there is not going to be any documentation required at the time of applying, but it's important that those numbers are run. And because this is such a significant program, we do expect there to be some serious scrutiny that will follow from this. So we want to make sure that you have the proper documentation done and that you do meet the 30% test in order to qualify. We don't know what the penalties, fines are for misuse of the system. That was mentioned a few times. So we want to make sure we're above board here in all respects, but we don't actually know what those fines and penalties are at this point. To our surprise as well, we expected when this first came out that this was going to override the 10% wage subsidy that came out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It did not. These two programs actually run side by side. So if an employer does not qualify for the CEWS, due to certain reasons, maybe they don't meet the 30% threshold, decline in revenues, then they can still apply for the 10% wage subsidy, which was, as we understand, has not changed from the way it's been communicated to us previously. We don't know what the implications are for someone that's already applied for the 10% wage subsidy ahead of time before this program was announced. We certainly expect there will be relief here, and we're not sure exactly how that'll be repaid if an employer wants to now qualify for the 75%, but we'll wait and see on that. Startups are very interesting because they don't have the comparative numbers to show the year-over-year decline in revenues. So what do we do with that? Bill Morneau said there will be some guidance coming out on that. Perhaps they'll look at the prior month or an average of the prior months to see where that all lines up. But for now, we'll just wait and see. But there is indication that startups will qualify for this as well, even though they don't have the year-over-year comparison. And in terms of corporations, which I mentioned earlier, we don't know if there's any restrictions on corporations. We don't know whether non-resident corporations will apply who have employees in Canada. Again, we'll wait and see on that as well. So I'm sorry if you came in with these questions. We can't answer those at this point in time. So on the second point of the plan, this was the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Again, we'll call CERB. This was supposed to be a all-encompassing program. So it applies to those who qualify for EI and even those who do not qualify for EI, such as self-employed people who were not opting in, who did not opt into the EI program. And it's important to note that when we mention workers under this program, that includes both includes both employees and self-employed workers. And this applies to anyone who have lost their job, are sick, quarantined, or taking care of someone that is sick with COVID-19. And it also applies to parents who have had to leave their job without pay to watch for children who had to stay at home because schools and daycares were closed or are also sick themselves. So the criteria to apply for this benefit, like I said, it really seems like anyone. It applies to anyone as long as you are no longer earning income. And again, it applies to those who weren't currently entitled to EI benefits. So it's anyone who's at least 15 years of age at the time of application, is a resident of Canada, and in the 12 months prior to the application had at least 5,000 of employment or self-employment income. And there's no distinguishment on an employee standpoint. There's no distinguishment between full-time and part-time. It's just the quantum of the income that's important here. And if you're applying for it, you have to have had at least 14 consecutive days within a month period in order to receive the payment. And the only people we've found that this doesn't apply to would be those who are still receiving employment or self-employment income. Even if there's been a decline in self-employment business, you still would not, in terms of what we see right now, you still would not qualify for this program. Or if you're an employee who's been temporarily laid off, but you're still receiving income while you're off, you would not qualify under CERB. Or if an employee quits their employment voluntarily, or a worker who's voluntarily self-isolates, and that relates to someone who's isolates on their own without following any of the guidelines provided by public health, which requires self-isolation. So in terms of the amount, it's important to note that the amount's taxable. So similar to EI, you will have to, at some point, include in your income, which will be next year, and pay tax on the amount that you do receive. It is a benefit for $2,000 a month, up to 4 months. And the benefit period right now is, again, retroactive to March 15th, all the way until October 3rd. So anytime within that period, if you fall within the criteria, you can apply for the $2,000 per month benefit. We were told originally this was supposed to be available sometime in the first week of April. We got guidance yesterday that it actually will be available on April 6th. There will be a portal set up through CRA or an automated phone line, which the number is not yet available, that you can call and apply. The benefit of this program, we were told, is it's supposed to be a lot simpler, easier, and convenient than it is to apply for EI. From what we understand, there's been a massive amounts of applications for EI, and the system's been slow. I believe the system's been crashing a bit too. This program is supposed to make things a lot easier and quicker.
Sorry, Mike, one thing to add about that is with regards to the expected payment for that. So if they're set up for direct deposit, the payment actually can take between 3 to 5 business days from the day of the application, as opposed to 10 business days if it's by check. So definitely highly recommend that everybody registers for direct deposit.
Thank you. Yeah. So the questions asked many times, what's the difference between EI and CERB? Well, we've gone over a few of them. One is CERB is eligible for almost everyone who's not currently earning income, whether they're EI eligible or not. CERB allows quicker access to the funding. So in terms of that, you need to consider what makes more sense to you. Do you want the quicker funding under CERB, or are you willing to wait a little bit longer to apply under EI, where your benefits may be a little bit higher? So that's the trade-off consideration. If Canadians, so if you're already receiving EI benefits today, there's been guidance that you do not apply for CERB. Perhaps they might convert you to CERB after. We're not sure yet, but we've been told that once you applied, or if you're already receiving EI benefits, don't cancel that and restart CERB. If EI benefits end before the end of the CERB program, and you still cannot return to work due to the illness of the virus, you can apply to CERB after that point, again up until October 3rd. And if the CERB program runs out and you still qualify for EI benefits, you have the ability to further apply for CERB after the EI benefits run out, up to 16 weeks and up to October 3rd. Okay, and Mike, if I can pass the baton over to you, and just if you can talk about some of the business loans, and then go through some of the provincial measures as well.
And can everyone hear me?
You can, Mike, thanks.
Okay. So as pillar 3 of the government, the federal government support measures, there's 3 loan programs that they've brought into place here. The first one being the Canada Emergency Business Account, which is effectively a up to $40,000 loan, interest-free, so long as you can demonstrate that you've paid between $50,000 to $1 million in total payroll for 2019. So from a documentation point of view, the best thing to have readily available if you want to apply for this business account would be your T4 summary to demonstrate this. Now, as far as the forgivable amount, there's if you can repay this loan before December 31st, 2022, the government will forgive approximately 25% of the loan. So potentially up to $10,000 could be forgiven. So with this program, as well as the loan guarantee and co-lending program, where each financial institution will provide up to $6.25 million for small medium enterprises backed by either EDC or BDC. It's important to note that all three of these programs are going to be administered through your current financial institution. So the first person you want to contact, and it's highlighted in bold on the government's website, would be your financial institution first to get more details. And just based on the way it's worded, these programs are meant for businesses who can't get credit solutions that they need for, say, working capital from their banks. It appears. So unfortunately, you have to go through your financial institution first to see if they can provide you with the credit solutions. And if not, then after that, it will be administered through EDC and BDC on a case-by-case basis. And it's said that these programs are to roll out 3 weeks after March 27th. So that puts you at about 3 weeks from now. And more details, I would imagine, are going to be needed, because there really isn't a lot that's been published on either the Government of Canada website or BDC or EDC. So long story short, you should reach out to your financial institution first to get more information about these programs. And so the next support measure that the government has released is effectively a bunch of filing extensions, as well as payment extensions with no interest or penalties for a number of entities that have certain year ends. So, for example, corporations, say if their tax return or if their tax return was due between March 19th and May 31st, it's now pushed to June 1st, as well as any installment payments, as well as the balance of tax owing for the 2019 tax year will be pushed to September 1st. And it's important to note that this only applies to part one tax on. So if you have tax on investment income inside corporation, your balance due date would still be the original balance due date. So, and then the next extension that they granted that may apply to a lot of people who are on the call are individuals or individuals with business income. And the filing extension has been pushed for individuals without business income to June 1st, 2020, as well as the balance due date is now September 1st, as well as any installments are now extended to September 1st. So, and then the filing deadline for individuals with business income, their filing deadline stays the same as June 15th, but their balance due date is also pushed to September 1st, 2020. There are a number of other entities where their filing deadlines have been pushed, such as trusts, partnerships, NPOs, and charities. And it's important to note that a lot of them. So, for example, trusts, their balance due date is now pushed from March 31st to September 1st, whereas their filing extension was March 31st as well. it's now pushed to May 1st. Filing extension, as well as any balance due or installments that were required to be paid. And charities who aren't taxable, their filing extension has been pushed to December 31st, 2020 if they were originally due between March 18th, 2020 and December 31st. So these measures don't all just apply to income tax. They also apply to GST and HST. However, the GST and HST filing deadlines haven't been pushed. It's just a matter of the payment due date, as well as any interest or penalty that may apply on that tax owing. So if you're a monthly filer with period end dates of February, March, or April, it's pushed to June 30th, as well as quarterly filers. If your year end is, or if your period end is February, March, or April, it also gets pushed to June 30th. And the same goes for annual filers as well. So along with the federal support measures, there's also provincial support measures, which are largely payment deferrals or sometimes form of income support and sometimes discounted rates. So the first one that we're going to talk about is so the employer health tax exemption. So if you, any employer in Ontario who has a payroll larger than 490,000 is required to pay EHT based on a sliding scale. Now, the exemption is up to 490,000, but now as a result of these provincial support measures, it's now pushed up to 1 million, and it's in excess of 1 million that you start to pay EHT premiums on. So effectively, an employer with over $1 million in payroll could save around $9,945 in EHT premiums, and that's not a deferral; that's a permanent savings for the year. But then after 2020, on June 1st, 2021, the exemptions will scale back to 490,000, and you won't be able to benefit from those savings any longer. Also, in conjunction with the EHT exemption, the provincial government is also deferring any property tax reassessment. So your scheduled reassessment property values will now be deferred until 2021, and the 2021 assessed value will be the same as 2020. And so another one is the deferral of WSIB premiums. Depending on your industry, this could be a rather large expense for, say, the construction industry or anything of that nature. And it's available to all sizes of employers. It's important to note there's no interest or penalties on the deferral of these premium payments. As well, there's also an electricity relief measure where the peak or the price you pay is going to be based on the off-peak price for 24 hours a day for the next 45 consecutive days. Now, it's important to note that a lot of us are now at home a lot more than usual, so there might not be an actual savings here. It's just your hydro bill might not be, your electricity bill might not be as large as you think it might be. And as well, there's also a parental support payment. So the Ontario government's going to make a one-time payment to parents of $200 per child up to 12 years old, and $250 for those with special needs to help with the extra costs due to school and daycare. They haven't released anything along the lines of this being income tested, so it looks like it's going to be a flat payment across the board. So along with all of the other measures that I was speaking about, there's a laundry list of other tax payments that have been deferred. I would expect that a large majority of the people on the call, maybe the only one that would apply would be the EHT tax that I previously spoke about. But nonetheless, this is a list of deferred payments for filings and remittances up to 5 months to August 31st, 2020. And I'll open the board to Q&A.
So there's a lot here, and we understand that there's questions. We still have questions. We're here to help. So if there's anything you want to go through that we talked about today or anything else, please let us know. And of course, everything comes to your mind after the presentation too. You have our contact information, but we'll also be sending a follow-up email that you can reach out to us if there's anything else that's on your mind.
Yeah, Mike, it's Scott. We have Adam on the line, so we're just trying to get him unmuted so he can speak to the group as well.
Perfect.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Hi, Adam. Sorry about that. And I know you were on at the beginning and you heard it, but I want to reiterate the thanks to you and the federal government for everything that you're doing to help us.
It's a pleasure and my privilege to be able to help the community. Like everybody, it's been challenging. The last few weeks have certainly been challenging. It's hard to run a constituency office remotely, so I can't imagine how hard it's been for small business owners here in Milton. I am here mostly to answer questions if you have any. I think Grant Thornton did a great job going through all of the supports that have currently been laid out by the federal and provincial governments. Please keep in mind that this is a fluid situation, so things are changing, things are happening. I think Parliament is going to be recalled, federal Parliament is going to be recalled at least once more, so that we can pass through different legislation. At present, the majority of the supports have been for people who have lost their income in March and April. And as we look forward to May, that's when seasonal work starts. That's certainly when our farmers market starts. So I know there's a lot of people interested in the farmers market, given that we're the Milton Chamber of Commerce. And so things are going to be changing. That's when the university students will require, their summer jobs. And so things will be changing. And I also wanted to provide my support from my office and an opportunity for input, because people have brought some very good ideas forward. Those ideas have gone to cabinet and they've had an impact on the legislation. I was on the phone yesterday with the Minister of Small Business Chief of Staff. He was very receptive providing that feedback that I received from people here in Milton on social media, on the phone, and over email directly to the top, and it's having an impact. So please, if you have good ideas, then don't be shy. Happy to answer any of the questions. If you do have questions, then I think the first stop to identify if they're easily solved is canada.ca. Click on COVID-19, click on the business supports, because the website is actually very, very good. Keep in mind that it's changing regularly, okay? They're updating it often because the situation is changing so quickly. Right now, the two best programs from the federal government that you should be focusing on are the ones that Grant Thornton outlined very well, which is the wage subsidy and the $40,000 loan, which is an up to $40,000 loan. Doesn't mean that it has to be $40,000. It was already said, but it bears repeating because it's a good program. It's an interest-free loan for 1 year, and if it's paid back by December 2022, then it's 25% forgivable. So it's a good deal. Obviously, the program's objective is to help people who have lost all of their income. Those who have lost some of their income, it's more challenging because some people have lost 10% of their income and some people have lost 90% of their income. So we are looking at ways to support everybody, because it's the federal government's job and obligation to make sure that this has as minimal an impact as possible on our economy. It's having an impact on everybody's economy around the world, and it's a challenge for every country around the world. But please don't be shy. So my email address is adam.vancouverton@parl.gc.ca. I think I can put that directly into the chat box, and if everybody can see it, then you can be in touch with my office. We're trying to return emails within 2 or 3 days, so please be patient. If you need a response right away, put it in all caps and say you need a response right away, and we'll get to it quick. But we're doing our best. This is obviously a challenging time for families, for businesses, for educators. And I really appreciate all the feedback so far. So keep it coming, and I'm happy to answer questions until 12:30.
Okay, thank you, Adam. We also have Robert Thompson from Parm Gill's office on the webinar as well. So Robert might be able to answer some questions as well. So I think everyone knows now, but the chat room has been opened up so we can answer some of the questions. We also had pre-submitted questions. We'll get to those at the end if we still have time. I think a lot of the questions that are coming in the chat room are very similar. So to the Grant Thornton team, I don't know if you can see the first question, but it's just double checking on the CERB for self-employed people.
Scott, would you mind just reading that out to us just to make sure we're on the same page? I don't know which question you're referring to there.
Okay, so the question is just to double check regarding the CERB. As a self-employed person who has lost 90% of my income, does this mean I will not qualify at all?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and we've had that a lot, and I think Adam touched on that right at the end too. They're looking at things that can help right now. The programs that are out there will not work in those cases because the CERB works for individuals who have who've lost all their income, so 100% of it. So that's employees or self-employed people. Of course, the wage subsidy won't work because there is no payroll to work there. So unfortunately, if there is income being earned still, even though it's not to anywhere close to what you were earning prior to the pandemic, there doesn't seem to be any federal measures available right now to support that.
Hey, could I hop in? Can you hear me?
Please.
It's Adam again, sorry. If you had $50,000 or more in payroll in 2019, then you would be able to apply for the $40,000 bank loan. 25% of it is forgivable. I understand that most small business owners and sole proprietors don't pay themselves through payroll. Oftentimes it's through other means like a shareholder loan or something like that. And that does create a little bit of a challenge. But the Minister of Small Medium Sized Enterprise, Mary Ng, is aware of that, and I made it very clear on the phone yesterday that many people are in that situation. So we're looking at measures that will account for that perceived discrepancy. But if you do in fact pay yourself or other contractors through payroll, then you'll be able to access that 40K, and that's through your bank. So you would go through your bank. If you haven't already received an email, then go contact your bank and see if you're eligible.
Okay, thank you. Another question, can you provide reference to the CERB where it is limited to SME with payroll of 50,000 to 1 million? I don't see a reference to that anywhere.
Mike McLaughlin, I think that relates to the small business loan.
Yeah, that relates to the, I guess, with all these acronyms, to the CEBA, the Canadian Emergency Business Account. So I can provide a link, but it states on the government website right underneath the business credit availability program. To qualify, these organizations will need to demonstrate that they paid between 50,000 and 1 million in total payroll in 2019. I can provide a link right now in the chat. And it's Canada Emergency Business Account, paragraph 2.
Michael, I may have just added the link that you're looking for there.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
I'm just looking through the questions now. I think we've answered most of them. For those people that are listening in, if you have any questions, please just post them to the chat room.
Scott, I can jump into that. Some of those pre-assigned questions or pre-listed questions were sent to us last night, so we had a chance to look at some of them. And one of them that was a consistent question was about rent. What do we do if we're completely shut down? How do we pay our rent? We're not eligible for any of these. We're not eligible for the wage subsidy, of course. As far as I understand, that's under provincial jurisdiction. And from just hearing different speeches from the Premier Doug Ford, I haven't heard anything in terms of rent being frozen. the federal government has offered that business loan, which the 40,000, which is there to cover operating costs. So it's things like inventory or covering rent for the next few months. That's what that's there for. But we don't have anything. We haven't heard anything in the pipeline in terms of rent being frozen.
Some people are on the chat saying that they can't see some of the links. I know Adam just reposted his email, and Adam's reposting some other things. If you are posting to the chat room, make sure you do it to all panelists and attendees.
That was it.
Okay, questions just came in. I'm in the entertainment business and employ freelancers that have an HST number, and I do not send them T4s as they are business on their own. How do I qualify for financial support to be able to pay loans and rent and overhead? I lost 100% of my income.
So Dan, this is Adam. If you have lost 100% of your income, then you qualify. You definitely qualify for CERB. There's no question. As a sole proprietor, all you had to earn last year was $5,000, and that can be through a combination and an aggregate of different means. So if you've lost everything in terms of your income, then you can apply for CERB, and that is going to be very early next week. And the best thing that you can do right now is make sure that you're signed up and registered with the CRA website and for my account, and ensure that you're registered for direct deposits with that program.
Scott, if I can interrupt for a second, I saw a couple questions come through on source deductions.
Sure.
So in terms of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the previous 10% program was a reduction of remittances that you would pay to CRA. It doesn't make sense under the 75% program because typically you're not going to have 75% source deductions for an employee. So what they're doing in that program is you're not reducing your withholdings anymore, your remittances any further. You're actually going to wait for a payment to come back to you from CRA, and we're told that's somewhere in the range of 3 to 6 weeks. But again, make sure you set up for direct deposit to receive it sooner if you can.
Tiffany makes a good point just now that the 10% program is still available. That was a point of contention yesterday. A lot of people were asking is the initial program that was brought forward was the 10% subsidy. And for those that don't qualify for the 75% subsidy, the 10% is still available. So it's not as much, but it's still something. There was another question with regards to the small business loans. The question asks with respect to poor credit, whether the government will help. I don't know. The banks do you do have to qualify for the loan, of course. But I think it is different than a typical loan in the sense that there's no interest and it's 25% repayable, or sorry, forgivable. So I would definitely suggest getting in touch with your bank to see if you're eligible for that loan if you're in a small business situation. Another question was, can we apply for CERB in March and the wage subsidy in April? You can only apply for CERB if you've lost all of your income, so keep that in mind for March. Perhaps the March application would be the 10% wage subsidy, and then the CEWS if you are under 30%, and that's for wage subsidy. Then yes, April, you could apply. There was also a statement that came out yesterday with respect to growth businesses. So when they see large growth every month over month, there might be an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you've lost, rather than for last April. Maybe your business didn't exist last April versus this April, that you've lost 30% from February to March, or from January till April, or something like that, as long as it's month over month. So just to reiterate, this is a fluid situation and it's constantly changing. So that's why your feedback is good. I think good suggestions have definitely made a difference.
There's one question about will there be a replay of the webinar? We'll be distributing all of the slide deck to everyone that registered. It will also be available on the Chamber website and likely on the Grant Thornton website. And this webinar is being recorded, so we'll post that as well. There was also a question about property tax at the regional and municipal level. If you look at the town and the region website, the I know Town Council on March 30th had a unanimous decision to defer property tax payments, or they defer the payments. They're still hoping that people will pay if they can, but if they're deferred, there's no penalty.
There's a question with respect to whether you can, I think it's from Stefan Magnitich, can you get 10% and the 75%? I don't think you can do them concurrently. I think if you were to get 10% in March, then qualify subsequently for the 75% in April, that's possible, but you don't get them at the same time. It's the same as EI and CREB. You don't get them concurrently. And then there was a question, sorry. If you have employees and it's possible to keep them on with no pay, then they could qualify for CERB. So instead of laying people, CERB is an anti-layoff measure. It's supposed to lighten the load on the EI system. And if you can keep them on and encourage them to access CERB, and of course they'll need no pay, then that's a good solution. That was from Brenda, I think. Your question is, if I lost 100% of my income, and will you qualify for $2,000 a month? The answer is yes. If your payroll is just under 50K, I don't know. I am without seeing your books, you'd have to go to your bank to qualify. Maybe if somebody else has been going through the questions, been having difficulty going back and forth from the website, but I'm happy to keep answering questions if there are any.
Yeah, there's one question about any plans to subsidize landlords who want to keep their tenants, but their tenants can't afford to pay the rent.
Well, many banks are offering a mortgage deferral. So if a landlord can access a mortgage deferral, then I would hope they would also defer the rent for those months. So that's a discussion that I think people will have to have with their landlords, and asking them if they've been successful in applying for a deferred mortgage payment.
One question, Adam, is with the normal summer jobs program, is that still going forward for hiring college and university students?
It's certainly been on hold. I haven't gotten any information with regards to Canada Summer Jobs. It's very difficult times for students as well. I've been on the phone with a couple of student leaders, student advocacy groups, and so that seasonal work generally starts in May. So the vast majority of the work that we've done up until now is focusing on people who have lost income in March and April, and the prospective lost income that students will no doubt experience in May is not off the table. We are looking for solutions for them. With any luck, that we'll be back to more or less regular in July, but that still leaves 2 months of lost income for students going back to school in September, when they really only have a few months to earn tuition money. So very good question there with respect to students. I know that there's going to be I was looking forward to hiring the most Canada Summer Job students possible, or not hiring them, but ensuring that they got jobs in Milton. And sadly, it'll have to go until 2021 to get the record, but hopefully we'll still have some time to, hopefully we'll be able to move that along. I just saw a question come in. How can you cancel your EI application and move forward with CERB? I don't think you have to. I think it rolls right over as long as you apply for CERB. They won't make a mistake and pay for both of them. Make sure you have a look to see which is more appropriate for you.
There was the one question about mortgage deferral. We've been talking about residential only. Can we talk about what's available for business?
I'm not aware of the difference. I would defer to somebody at Grant Thornton if you are aware of any of the differences.
This is in regards to a mortgage deferral for a business. I think the idea there would be that those costs would be under these guaranteed loan programs and potentially the CEBA, but I don't think there's been anything said about a mortgage deferral for businesses specifically. So long story short, to answer your question, I don't think there is one specific for business.
Okay, so there's another question about any subsidies for real estate agents or accountants.
I don't think that any of the measures from any level of government just yet have gotten to the sort of granular level of supporting specific industries. There's no difference if you've got no income for March or April, then you qualify for CERB, whether you're an accountant or otherwise. I have talked to a few people who are down to 10% of their income, and of course that creates, you're in a more vulnerable position now because you don't qualify for EI or for CERB. So in many cases, people who are down to 25% of their income are in a more vulnerable position than those who have lost everything, because there's a support net for those who have lost everything. So this is good feedback, and I'm taking it right to the top because these are some of those scenarios that that are arising now that we're only just now realizing how long we're going to be in this situation. So good feedback. Yeah, I hear you, Tiffany.
Yeah, I think Adam, I think you have a hard stop perhaps at 12:30. If you have to leave, that's fine.
I can continue to take questions as long as I can.
Okay, thank you. There was one question. If a business is deemed to be non-essential and therefore closed, would keeping employees on payroll result in employees staying home and not working, but receiving full pay?
I think that would be up to you as an employer. If you can reduce their pay to nothing, then they're eligible for CERB. If you cut it in half, then they're not. If you can qualify for the 75% wage subsidy, and if you do think you will, and I think most will, to be quite honest, if you look at, there's only a few criteria there for eligibility. If you think that you will qualify, then my suggestion would be to reduce them to 75% for now. And again, I'm not a financial advisor and I don't provide, advice. But if you reduce them to 75%, if you think that you will succeed in qualifying for the 75% wage subsidy, that will be backdated till March 15th, according to the website. So I would suggest going on the website, figuring out where you qualify and how you qualify as a business, and reducing your pay to 75%. That's probably the best way to go. Although, as your MP, I'm not qualified to give you small business advice, but that's what I see on the website.
There's a question from earlier. I'm self-employed with no EI and kids older than 12 years old. My income has been reduced to more than 60%. If I understood it, I will not get any help because I'm not totally out of work and my kids are older than 12.
I haven't seen anything that that states that children over or under 12 provide, a qualifier for this, for CERB.
I think it might be that might be confused with the
Right, the provincial measure.
Yeah, the provincial measure for the one-time payment of $200 per child under 12, or 250 for a child with special needs. So I believe you wouldn't qualify for those payments, nor the CERB, because you still have about 60% of your income.
Another question. As a small business with 70% reduction and now working from home, we still have to pay rent for the business and mortgage, but we still don't qualify for any subsidies. What's available for us?
Would you not qualify for the $40,000? There was a question in the meantime, if you can get back to us on the chat. Because I think that's the one for rent for business operating costs. That's the $40,000, and all you need to do in order to qualify for that is have a payroll of over $50,000 and have your revenues reduced by 30%. And it sounds like you have. Manny asks, as an employer, do we need to submit an ROE for employees to claim CREB? No, that's just for EI. CREB can be qualified for without a layoff. You just have to be earning no money. So that's the difference. You would have to decrease their income to zero. Tiffany, I hear you on the 75% difficult. It's difficult to manage with a minimum of 6 weeks. Just ensure that you'll qualify before making that decision, and keep in mind that it gets backdated all the way till March 15th, which is likely before you started to take a hit as a business, and before you had to reduce anybody's income, of course.
Okay, I think with that, we'll try and bring this to a close. I don't think we've answered all the questions, but we can look at those after the fact and try and post answers on the Chamber website. And again, the slides will be circulated to everyone. So again, on behalf of everyone that's on the line, we want to give our thanks to Adam, certainly, for making yourself available and answering all of the questions, and also to Mike, Michael, and Mickey from Grant Thornton for your expertise. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of the webinars. We're likely to come back with other ones, so watch the Chamber e-newsletters and website for information. A small commercial too for those people that want to maintain social distancing but still want to socialize. The Chamber's Breakfast Club is meeting next week virtually, so we're going to be meeting at 9 o'clock, and so details about that are on the Chamber website. Any final comments, Adam, or Mickey, Michael, Mike?
No, I thank you and Grant Thornton for putting together such an informative session for the small businesses and medium-sized businesses here in Milton. And I've added my email address to the chat, so please send me a message if you've got any further questions. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Grant Thornton.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Be safe.